Today we're going to work on this 2016 Chevy Trax. Our digitizer is not working, so we're going to remove the radio from the dash and replace the screen with a screen that I purchased from Cuescreens. So to begin with, we need to remove this cover at the top. And there's two 7mm screws back here that need to be removed so that the unit can be pulled out. Once you have these screws removed, grab the unit, give it a little shove, and it should pull straight out. And you can lift it, and the whole unit comes out. Set that aside. To remove the radio, there are 4 screws here, 7mm again, that need to be removed. And then the whole unit pulls out, and there are 4 connectors on the back that need to be removed. Once you have the 4 screws removed from the unit, the entire unit should pull out, and you'll see there's 4 connectors that need to be disconnected. Each one has a clip, usually facing downward, that you must squeeze and pull. This one has a lever, so it must be disengaged and levered back, and you can pull it out. And then this one's the tricky one, and you pull that loose. There's your 4 connections. In order to remove the faceplate from the radio, these brackets on the sides must be removed. I've already started the screws. There's 3 screws in each, so we just need to remove the last screw from both units. And that allows us to get to these screws that are inside here that we'll take out next. Once you have the 4 screws removed out of each of these spots, the faceplate pulls off by disconnecting this tab, pulling forward, and the entire unit comes out. You'll see that you have several ribbon cables that we have to deal with. These ribbon cables work. They have a tiny lever that needs to be flipped upwards, and then that allows the unit, or the ribbon cable itself, to be pulled out. So you can see I just flipped that lever up. Now I can remove the ribbon cable. It's very important to get those lined back up when you put them back in. There's the second one. And now both of those ribbon cables have been removed, and we can move on to the step where we replace and take out all the screws so we can get the faceplate off. Now there's a lot of screws for that, so you'll see these here, as well as this one in there, and then the ones around the outside. All of those need to be removed in order to pull the face unit off of the rest of the circuit board. Okay, so I've removed 4 black screws and 4 brass screws from the outside. You can see those here. This one is a different size than the others, so you want to make sure you keep it separate so it can be put back in the right spot. And once you remove that, then the face unit, we should be able to remove the cover. So the cover is removed. Now we must remove this circuit board. So again, there's 4 screws here that need to be taken out, and then there's also ribbon cables that need to be disconnected. This these 2 here, as well as this one, need to be removed. So I've removed all the screws, and before we can pull this out from the face, we have to disconnect these ribbon cables. So again, this one has a lever that you must pop open. Just pops out easily. This one is a different style that needs to be pulled away from the connector. And this is actually the one that is running the screen that we're going to be replacing. And then this one is just a pull out, so it has a small tab that you can grab and pull loose. Once you have all of those disconnected, you can push on the front of the faceplate, and the entire unit should pop out. Oh, there is one more that I forgot. So there are 4 ribbon cables that must be disconnected. This one also had a lever. Now you can pop it out and remove the unit, and you can see that this back plate can be set aside, and we have access to the screen that we're attempting to replace. Okay, so we're gonna put this new screen from Cuescreens onto the unit. Before we can do that, we must remove the old unit, and then we also need to remember to take the plastic off both sides of this before we affix it. Now this can get a little tricky and it's easy to break. You pry carefully around the edges and try to get it to lift off evenly, and there's a plastic seal on the back that's making it sticky. That's what affixes it to this unit. Make sure before you take it off that you understand your orientation so that you can put it back on the same way you took it off. That way you can connect it. And for this, there's plastic tabs. So we want to be careful about getting this dusty because it's going to go right back onto the unit. And this comes with a sticky self-adhesive itself. I believe that means this could probably be removed, but I'm leaving it on for my purposes. And it's very important then to ensure that you have the screen in alignment before you affix it to the front. Okay, make sure you have a good seal around the edges, and then we'll go ahead and remove the plastic and move to the next step. Okay, now we get to put this assembly back onto the front and the circuit board. There are 3 ribbon cables we're going to be dealing with. Mainly these 2 are the important ones as you're trying to put it through this. We need this ribbon cable to go through this hole and this tiny little ribbon cable to go through that hole. So I'm going to get it set on there generally, flip it over, reach in with some pliers and make sure I have it. Again, this one has a pull tab. And then this one, you can grab the white tab and make sure it's pulled up through. You could screw it on if you want. I'm going to go ahead and try to affix the ribbon cable now. For these with the levers, you just need to make sure that the ribbon cable is very flat and there should be little notches on the edges. And once it's in place, flip the lever down. This one, as I mentioned before, sticks out from the white. The black part separates out from the white part. You can slide this in gently, and once it's fully seated, then push the black part back into the white part to secure it. It's very important to make sure that that's all the way in to make the connection. And then this one is just one that slides in, so it's easiest if you can grab it and slide it right in like that. Okay, once the 3 ribbon cables are attached on the circuit board, we can reattach the faceplate. You can see there's one more ribbon cable that has to go through this slot. So I found if you get it lined up the best here, then that should get it pretty close by angling the ribbon cable. Once you get it through there, then you're good to go and you can lay it in there. Okay, at this point, the screws could be put back in and this final ribbon cable should be placed in there until the grooves line up, fully seated, and then the lever pushed down. So this one screw is a little tricky. I've got 3 screws in there. This last one I'm using my needle nose pliers to get it started because it's difficult to get to. Once you get that in there, we can tighten that screw, and then we're ready to put the back plate on to this item. So for the back plate, we need to make sure these 2 ribbon cables are threaded through. And then it should slide right back in. And then it's just a process of putting all 4 of these screws in. Just remember, this middle screw is the tiny one that doesn't match up to the other sizes. Now that the unit the back plate has been put back on, you can see these 4 screws are in and all of the screws here. We can put this back on the full unit. You can see these 2 slots have to line up down here, so that's the best thing to think about, but we need to make sure we get these in too. So you'll want to get those hooked up. It's a little difficult to get into it, and I'm sure it's difficult to see, but these work the same way. They have the levers, so you have to get them fully in and then close the lever. So I've repositioned this to give myself a better angle. Once I have something to hold the unit up and I can slide this in there, I'm able to get it fully seated and then close the lever. And then the same with this ribbon cable. Get it fully seated, close the lever. And as I mentioned, those back here, there's 2 tabs that have to be lined up. And these parts have to be on the outside, so once you get everything to line up, it should all snap in place, and we can proceed with putting these 4 screws back in and the brackets on the side. Okay, this last bracket, they only fit one way. You can see this one has to line up with that small peg, and just has 3 screws for us to put in. And once we have this completed, we can go reinsert the unit into the vehicle and give it a try. Alright, we've got the unit fully put back together with the new screen. Now we can insert it back into the vehicle, just plugging in the items that we removed before. Just need to line up the clips with the proper orientation before you connect these. They should connect up pretty easily. And the last one here. And then the main connector. This one slides in and then the lever completes the connection. So at this point, we can line the unit up. There's a small peg on the back that has to be lined up, and then mainly you just line it up with the 4 holes, and then we'll put the 4 bolts back in. After the unit's back in, you can now add the vent kit and everything back in place. So to get it in there, you need to tip the top carefully, get it lined up, give it a little shove. We'll put the 2 bolts in and then we'll give it a try. The new unit installed with the new screen on it from Cuescreens seems like it's working well. We can touch. Before, when we would touch, it was very intermittent on whether it would work, and then every now and then it would go completely crazy and do all kinds of things. So I would call this a success.